Among the warriors of Midgard, few were as feared as Thorolf the Shield Wall. His strength was a whispered legend among the Skalds, his deeds recorded in the sagas. But even he could not ignore the summons of the All-Father. Odin appeared in a vision, his eyes glowing like embers in the mists of time, commanding him on a mission no other would dare undertake, to descend into the icy underworld of Niflheim and hunt an ancient dragon, a beast whose name had long been forgotten, but whose power still echoed in the eternal ice. The journey to Niflheim was not for the faint-hearted. Thorolf crossed raging seas, braved ice storms, and fought the undead that roamed the shadowy lands of the goddess Hel. But when he finally found the creature, he realized he was not just a monster. The dragon was more than fangs and fire. It was a guardian. He protected a secret that could rewrite the fate of the Vikings, something so powerful that even the gods feared its revelation. The dilemma was clear: obey Odin and destroy the beast, or defy the very order of the world to discover the truth. In the icy heart of Niflheim, the warrior faced his greatest battle, not against the dragon, but against his own destiny. The ice cracked beneath his feet, the monster's breath turning the air to mist. Every stroke of his blade was a duel between the present and the future. But the question remained: what truly lay buried beneath those layers of ice? What if, in fulfilling his mission, he was sealing the doom of his own people? In the wild heart of the north, where the ice mountains rose like walls and the sea crashed against the cliffs like a raging warrior, Thorolf was born. His birth was marked not by joy, but by tragedy and dark omens. His mother, Astrid, a woman of indomitable spirit, died giving birth to him, and his father, Jorund the Iron Wolf, one of the greatest warriors of the Ulfgar clan, fell in battle before he even saw his son open his eyes. It was said that the boy's destiny was already sealed the moment he took his first breath, a warrior born to fight, shaped by pain and destined for something greater than any man could understand. The Ulfgar clan was known for its ferocity. Its warriors did not fear death, for they knew that Valhalla awaited them with mead and eternal battles. But even among them, Thorolf stood out. From an early age, his resilience was legendary. Other boys cried in the bitter winter cold, but Thorolf stood firm, facing the storms as if they were mere breezes. By the age of 5, he was already holding a shield larger than himself, training against seasoned warriors, taking hard blows and never flinching. His nickname, Shield Wall, came early. In his first real battle, at the age of 13, the clan was attacked by a rival tribe during the winter. Supplies were scarce, and an invasion meant starvation and death. The older warriors fought fiercely, but it was Thorolf who surprised everyone. Taking his position at the entrance to the main hall, he raised his shield and single-handedly held the line against multiple enemies, protecting women and children while the clansmen retaliated. No blade passed through him. No spear found a way through. He was like a living wall, impassable. When the battle was over and the bodies were counted, Thorolf still stood, panting, covered in enemy blood but intact. It was at that moment that the Skalds began to sing of him. At 18, Thorolf was already feared and respected in every corner of the north. He was not just a warrior. He was a force of nature. His shield seemed indestructible, and his mind was sharp as a blade. He fought not only with brute strength, but with intelligence, anticipating the movements of his enemies, using the terrain to his advantage. His name was whispered in the corridors of the Jarl's halls, and even kings knew that having Thorolf by their side was a guarantee of victory. But it was not only his martial skill that made him special. There was something about him that no one could explain. A glow in his eyes, a presence that made even the most experienced hesitate before facing him. And then came the signs. Odin's ravens seemed to follow him wherever he went. Strange dreams, visions of a dragon hidden beneath the ice, of battles that had yet to happen. One cold night, as he rested by a campfire, a hooded man emerged from the shadows. His gaze was piercing like spears, and his voice was as deep as thunder. "The Rolf, Shield Wall. The All-Father has seen you. The All-Father has chosen you." The messenger said nothing more, only handed him a pendant bearing the symbol of Yggdrasil and disappeared into the darkness. But though Rolf knew what it meant, Odin was calling him. And when the gods call, there is no denial. In the days that followed, the omens intensified. An unprecedented storm struck his village. The elders claimed it was a warning from the gods. The wolves howled incessantly, and even the wind seemed to whisper his name. Then, on the night of the winter solstice, as the sky turned red as if it were made of blood, though Rolf had his clearest vision, he saw Niflheim, the icy underworld, and within it a colossal creature, a dragon with burning eyes, its frozen wings locked in eternal ice. But there was more. The monster was guarding something that could change everything. When he awoke, he knew what he had to do. He took up his shield, his blade, and set out, never looking back. The fate of the Vikings hung in the balance. And though Rolf the Shield Wall was ready to face his greatest challenge, in the sacred lands of Asgard, where the golden glow of the great halls reflects the immensity of the god's power, Odin, the All-Father, sat upon his throne of altars, watching fate with his wise and penetrating eyes. The hall was silent except for the sound of the wind whispering through the crystal windows, as if it too had something to tell. Odin, ever watchful, knew that the balance of the world of men was about to be disturbed by a force he had feared for centuries, the dragon of Niflheim. The dragon was no ordinary creature, no mere monster that warriors could defeat with sharp swords or well-aimed arrows. His name was Dralga, the Ice Dragon, and his existence had been a legend, passed down from generation to generation but rarely believed. Known for his colossal strength and terrifying appearance, the dragon was imprisoned in the icy depths of the underworld, Niflheim, where the cutting winds and eternal ice created a place of utter desolation. However, his true nature was far more dangerous than any legend could tell. Dralga was not just a being of destruction. He held a secret capable of altering the future of all humanity, and more importantly, the future of the gods themselves. For millennia, Dralga had been imprisoned by Odin himself, who knew that the dragon could not be defeated simply. His power was linked to a primordial force, an energy capable of breaking the cycles of fate and changing the course of history. It was not only the dragon that Odin feared, but the secret that it held between its scales. If freed, this secret could weaken the gods and pave the way for a new order in the world, where men and mythological creatures would collide in an immeasurable war. Ragnarok itself could be anticipated, and with it, the destruction of not only Asgard, but of all the realms. That was why Odin, the All-Father, chose the Rolf. The Viking warrior known as the Shield Wall was destined to be more than just a sharp blade against the enemies of Midgard. Odin knew that the Rolf possessed a quality rare among men, an inner strength that was based not only on bravery or skill in battle, but also on his strategic mind and his resistance to temptation. In a world dominated by chaos and destruction, the Rolf was a warrior who knew how to preserve order. And this quality was necessary to face what was about to happen. On the night the call was made, Odin appeared to the Rolf in a vision. It was no simple dream, but a manifestation of the one-eyed god's own divine strength. The Rolf was in his hall, resting after a long journey, when suddenly, darkness took over. There was no more light, and the sound of the frozen storm fell silent. A deep silence filled the air, and an incomparable presence enveloped him. The Rolf, son of Jorund and Astrid, Shield Wall, the fate of the realms is in your hands. Odin's voice said, reverberating in his mind. "The dragon Dralga, imprisoned in Niflheim, threatens to break free. The key to preventing chaos and the end of our world lies in your hands. The secret he holds is the greatest danger we have ever faced, and you, Thorolf, are the only one capable of facing it." Thorolf, though confused and hesitant, felt the weight of Odin's words, but also the certainty in his heart. He knew that destiny called to him, and that whatever was necessary, he would do. He might not understand the secret the dragon held, but it was clear that the dragon's power was not something that could be allowed to thrive. "You will be the guardian of truth, the shield against the chaos he will bring," Odin continued, his voice deepening, becoming heavier. "But remember, Thorolf, this is not just a physical fight. The dragon is no ordinary being. The fight will be against him as much as against the winds of fate itself. Facing him will be more than a test of strength. It will be a test of the soul." With that, Odin's vision faded, and Thorolf woke. The heat of the fire before him seemed more distant now, as if time itself had stopped for a moment. He knew the journey would be long, dangerous, and full of challenges. Most importantly, he knew that his mission was not simply to hunt a dragon. He must face something much greater than that. The fate of all beings, human and god alike, lay in his hands. Odin's call reverberated in Thorolf's heart like a force impossible to ignore. Upon awakening from the vision that had connected him directly to the one-eyed god, the warrior felt the weight of his mission. It was no longer a matter of protecting his village, of fighting petty battles for the honor of his clan. No, he was destined for something much greater. The fate of the world itself was in his hands, and his mission was clear. Travel to Niflheim, the icy underworld, and confront the dragon Dralga, whose power and secret could change the future of humanity and the gods. But before he could enter the domains of Niflheim, Thorolf knew that his journey would be fraught with immeasurable dangers. The first stage of his journey took him to the far reaches of Midgard. There was no clear road that could guide him to the realm of eternal ice. Thorolf had to cross dense forests, towering mountains, and frozen rivers, where the temperature was so brutal that his bones ached with every breath. In one of his first challenges, he had to face a horde of ferocious wolves, who attacked with an almost supernatural speed. But Thorolf, the shield wall, was undeterred. Using his great sword and sturdy shield, he cut through the wolves with the skill of a seasoned warrior. It was the first test of his endurance and his ability to remain calm amidst chaos. When the battle was over, he realized that, as strong as he was, he needed to be more than that to face what was to come. For weeks, he faced increasingly intense challenges. He climbed ice-covered mountains, where the cutting winds nearly knocked him off the trail. One night, he was attacked by a creature of darkness, a shadow that emerged from his own nightmares, and only survived thanks to his ability to distinguish illusions from reality. But the adversities did not stop him, and Thorolf pressed on, knowing that the only way to fulfill his mission was to cross the unknown realms and reach Niflheim. When he reached the border of the frozen kingdom, Thorolf encountered an obstacle that not even he, with all his experience, could have foreseen. The entrance to Niflheim was guarded by a magical barrier, an impenetrable wall of ice that seemed to freeze the very soul of anyone who tried to cross it. It was at this moment that he received unexpected help from Arne, a dwarf from the caves of Svartalfheim, known for his ability to manipulate the magical energies of the underworld. Arne, with his long beard and eyes glowing like embers, appeared before Thorolf like a shadow in the icy mist. "Do you seek the underworld, Viking warriors?" Arne asked, his voice hoarse and full of experience. "The crossing will not be easy, nor will it be without cost. But you have what it takes to pass this barrier, strength and courage." You only need to learn to touch the essence of the ice. Thorolf looked at the dwarf suspiciously, but he knew he had no other choice. Arne led him to a hidden cavern, where the dwarf revealed ancient spells that could break the magical barriers of Niflheim. With quick gestures, Arne caused the ice before them to begin to crack, forming fissures as thin as silver threads, until the ice wall shattered into pieces, leaving the entrance to Niflheim open. "Now, go," Arne said. "But remember, what you seek is not in Niflheim alone. It is within you. Do not let fear of the unknown overcome you." With these words, Thorolf entered the icy underworld. The environment that opened before him was indescribable. A vast expanse of snow and ice, where shadows moved strangely, creating figures that seemed to be both illusions and real threats. The air was heavy, and the silence was oppressive, as if time itself had stopped there. With every step he took, Thorolf felt the pressure of the place, as if he were entering a nightmare. But the warrior did not hesitate. Each deep breath was an affirmation of his mission. He passed through fields of ice and underground caverns, where the echoes of ancient footsteps resounded. As he approached the core of Niflheim, where the dragon Draugr was imprisoned, he felt the weight of his journey increase. But he also felt something else, a presence that accompanied him, as if the very winds and rocks of Niflheim were watching his movements, testing his courage with every step. Finally, after many hours of walking and several unexpected challenges, Thorolf reached the entrance to a vast, icy cavern. The air was thick and cold, and the ground trembled beneath his feet. Inside the cavern, he could hear a distant roar, as if the earth itself were reacting to the dragon's presence. Draugr, the ice dragon, was there, waiting. But before he entered the cave, Thorolf stopped and looked back one last time at the journey he had taken. He knew that from that moment on, there would be no turning back. He was about to face the greatest challenge of his life, and the mission Odin had entrusted to him would require more than just his sword or his shield. It would require his soul, his courage, and the ability to face the horrors of Niflheim, the realm where time itself bent, and where death lurked in the shadows of the ice. The sound of ice breaking beneath his feet echoed with every step Thorolf took into the depths of Niflheim. The landscape around him was of terrible beauty, a vast desert of snow and ice, where the wind howled with the intensity of 1,000 laments. But the Viking warrior knew there was no time for wonders. The dragon, Draugr, was there, somewhere in the shadows of this icy realm, waiting. Every movement Thorolf made was calculated, every deep breath an attempt to resist the immense pressure that the environment imposed. Niflheim was not a place made for humans. There, the air felt heavy in his lungs, and the very ground seemed to vibrate with an energy he did not fully understand. The first thing Thorolf noticed upon entering this dark realm was the presence of the creatures that inhabited the caves and ice fields. Ghosts and spirits of fallen warriors appeared in the shadows, their eyes glowing with the same flame as lost souls. They whispered words that Thorolf could not understand, but somehow he knew they were warnings and curses meant to divert the warrior from his mission. But Thorolf was not easily distracted. His heart beat strong, unwavering, determined to do Odin's will. The fate of his people was in his hands, and he would allow nothing, not even the ghosts of the underworld, to stop him. On one of his first days in the frozen land, Thorolf came across a road of bones, a trail of skeletons arranged in an almost ritualistic manner, as if they were part of some macabre ceremony. Each skull he saw bore an expression of eternal pain, as if they had been left there to remind the living of the cost of the journey they were now undertaking. Thorolf, without hesitation, walked down that path of death, feeling the weight of the souls watching him, but not allowing the sense of dread to take hold of his spirit. He knew that here he was being tested. Each step was an ordeal, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. The place fed on doubt, and Thorolf did not allow it to consume him. After days of walking, in the biting cold and the constant landscape of ice and rock, Thorolf began to notice signs of Dralga's presence. The ground beneath his feet would tremble slightly, a vibration that only he, with his experience, could feel. The air grew denser and colder with each step he took toward that place. But he still did not know exactly where the dragon was. Then, on a particularly cold night, he heard a distant roar, so deep that it seemed to make the earth itself writhe. It was a sound that came from the heart of Niflheim, a sound that spoke of absolute power, a force that could annihilate anyone who approached his cave. Thorolf followed the source of that roar, going deeper and deeper into the caverns of Niflheim. The walls were slippery, covered in ice, and the atmosphere was oppressive, as if the air itself was trying to suffocate him. The warrior had to fight against the disorientation caused by the fog and the cutting wind that filled the environment. The smell of ice and death was intense, and the feeling that something was watching him was constantly with him. The rocks around him, with their distorted shapes, seemed to move, as if they were alive, whispering ancient threats. It was then that, in a narrow stone corridor, Thorolf found an ice door, a macabre entrance that seemed to have been made to keep something, or someone, imprisoned. In front of the door, he saw something he would never forget. A symbol, an ancient emblem, engraved in the ice. It was a symbol of the ancient dragons, a rune that he had seen before in his studies of mythology, but never imagined that it would have any real meaning. This was the key to the heart of Niflheim, the place where Dralga waited. It was the end point of his journey. With the strength of his hand, Thorolf touched the ice door, and it began to slowly melt, revealing the interior of a gigantic cavern. What he found inside was something that not even his worst nightmares could have foreseen. In the center of the cavern, shrouded in an icy mist, stood the dragon, Dralga, with his immense tail snaking across the cavern and his wings as black as the darkness, looked at Thorolf with eyes that seemed to reflect all the suffering in the world. The dragon was an imposing creature, with scales that shone in a dark blue, almost black color, reflecting the lights of the cavern in a ghostly way. Each movement of his caused the ice around him to crack with a sound that reverberated like thunder. The two stared at each other for a long moment. The tension in the air was palpable. Dralga's roar made the entire cavern tremble. "Have you come this far, mortal?" the dragon said in a voice that seemed to come from an abyss. "You have no idea what you are about to face. Niflheim is no place for the likes of you." Thorolf, without hesitation, raised his shield and raised his sword, looking into the dragon's eyes with grim determination. He knew that the future of his people was at stake, and that this encounter would be the final showdown between the fate of the gods and the survival of his race. "Odin sent me," Thorolf said, his voice firm, "and I will fulfill my mission, whatever the cost." And so, the battle between Thorolf, the shield wall, and Dralga, the ice dragon, was about to begin, in the heart of the frozen realm of Niflheim, where the future of the entire world would be decided. The battle raged in Niflheim with a fury no warrior could have imagined. The ice of the cave cracked beneath Thorolf's feet, and the icy wind that the dragon created with its movements cut like sharp blades. Dralga, with his gigantic wings, covered the battlefield with menacing shadows, making the warrior feel as if the entire universe was against him. Each blow of the dragon's enormous tail made the ground tremble, and the flames of icy fire that the monster spat collided with the surface of the cave, creating explosions of steam and blue light. Thorolf, steadfast, was prepared. The weight of his sword was nothing compared to the weight of his destiny. However, the battle was not just physical. As the dragon and the warrior clashed violently, something profound was unfolding in the recesses of the cave. Draugr was not just a beast seeking combat. He held a secret, something far more valuable than his immense body and strength. Deep in the cave, on an ice altar, lay an ancient scroll, engraved with runes that shone like lost stars. The scroll was the key to the wisdom that spoke of Ragnarok, the end of times. Only with the death of the dragon could Thorolf access it. For Draugr, in his essence, was the only protection of that knowledge. The two faced each other ferociously. Each of Thorolf's blows was delivered with deadly precision, but Draugr seemed to anticipate his movements, using his enormous strength to block, attack, and defend himself with a skill that surprised the warrior himself. Thorolf jumped to the left, dodging Draugr's tail that passed like a blade of ice, cutting the air around him. The dragon roared, a sound that reverberated like thunder, and twisted its neck, releasing an explosion of ice and fire that covered the entire cave. The Vikings skillfully dodged it, but not without feeling the pressure of the attack. "Do you think you can defeat a god?" Draugr said, his words echoing off the cave walls. "I was created to protect the wisdom of the ancients. Only the strongest can access what is hidden here." Thorolf, tired but determined, responded with a growl of rage. "I am more than you think, dragon." As the battle raged on, Thorolf began to sense something mysterious within himself. There was something in his blood, a strength that was not in his combat training or his weapons. He felt the heat of battle awakening an inner strength, something ancient and almost divine. With each blow he struck, an energy grew within him. The shield in his hand, normally heavy and simple, now seemed to vibrate with an energy of its own, as if it were more than a simple defense. Something of great power was being born, and it was at that moment, at the height of the battle, that the truth about Thorolf came to light. In the midst of the fight, a burst of light illuminated the cavern, momentarily blinding both combatants. Thorolf saw flashes of images in his mind, himself on a battlefield, his hands raising a gleaming axe. He saw his own lineage, a bloodline that stretched back to Tyr, the god of war. He was no ordinary warrior. He was a demigod, the son of Tyr, and this lineage explained his keen combat skills, his resilience, and the superhuman strength he possessed. As the flash of light dissipated, Thorolf looked at the dragon and understood that without this revelation, he would never have had the strength to defeat it. It was his destiny. His shield, the relic he had always carried with him, now pulsed with new energy. He felt as if he were holding the very essence of his divine lineage. Thorolf, with a primal scream, launched himself into the attack, faster and stronger than ever, charging at the dragon with unstoppable force. The battle reached its climax when Thorolf, with a swift and determined movement, raised his shield above his head. The dragon, seeing the threat, launched a final attack, with a blast of fire and ice that seemed unstoppable. But at the right moment, Thorolf's shield shone brightly, emanating a golden light so strong that it blinded the darkness around it. It was as if Mjolnir itself, Thor's hammer, was resurrected through him. The ancient power of his father, Tyr, manifested itself through him, and with a final blow, Thorolf imposed his shield against Draugr's strength, creating a wave of energy so strong that it split the creature in half. The dragon, with an agonized roar, fell to the ground with a crash, and its flesh disintegrated, turning into pieces of ice and ash that disappeared into thin air. The scroll, now freed from its prison, floated to Thorolf's hands. He took it, feeling the weight of the wisdom that was now within his grasp. But before he could study the contents, an immense and indescribable presence appeared in the cave. The air around him thickened, and a towering figure appeared before him. Odin, the All-Father, stood there, his presence illuminating the dark cavern like the sun above a cloudy sky. His gaze was deep, and he fixed his eyes on Thorolf with a grave but approving smile. "You have done what many would not dare attempt," Odin said, his voice reverberating off the stone. "You have defeated the dragon, accessed ancient wisdom, and proven your worth. Now, Thorolf, the shield wall, it is time to return home. The gates of Asgard are open to you. Come, my son, follow me." At Odin's word, Thorolf felt the energy around him shift. He had accomplished his mission, and more importantly, he had discovered who he truly was. The demigod he had always been. The warrior who bore within him the power of a god. He finally understood his true destiny, and with one last look at the scroll of wisdom, he followed Odin to Asgard, ready to face the future, now knowing that his journey was just beginning. Did you like this story? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next epic sagas. The journey continues.